This is the Tristan Law Show. If it's your first time here, welcome. And if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm Tristan Law. Thanks so much for joining me this afternoon, this evening, while you're probably on lunch on another episode of the Tristan Law Show. Today, we'll be talking about the WWE Attitude Era and why it had to end. The reason why I wanted to do this episode so badly is because a lot of us kids at the time or young adults or whatever it might be. I was 12 when the Attitude Era started. And the reason why that I had to do this episode is because some of us just can't let go. So maybe I can help everybody watching let go of the past and move on because, you know, there's some reasons why the WWE Attitude Era had to end. The Attitude Era is so beloved because it's something that resonates to us. For some of us, it's probably the first time that we really started to love pro wrestling. For some of us that loved pro wrestling before, that's when pro wrestling turned on its head. And we just can't let go of it. So just so we can set the table, let's go ahead and talk about the history of the WWE Attitude Era. The WWE Attitude Era started Sunday, November 9th, 1997. It was after WWF played a Don't Try This at Home video before the Montreal Screwjob match at Survivor Series 1997. The WWF scratch logo was first shown right before that main event match. And the Attitude Era ended Monday, May 6th, 2002, and it was a pivotal time in the WWF, now WWE. It began during the Monday Night War and with WWF Raw competing against WCW's Nitro. The Attitude Era was known for its edgy content, more mature violence, profanity, sexual themes, which fueled a surge in wrestling's popularity. Iconic stars like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Triple H rose to fame, and tag teams like the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys thrived. Women's wrestling also saw a resurgence with stars like Chyna and Lita, who were serious competitors in the WWE. It also introduced intense matches like the TLC, new stables like DX. The Hardcore Championship, which was famous for its chaotic matches, was also established in the Attitude Era. The Attitude Era ended on May 6th, 2002, when WWF rebranded to WWE, leading to the start of the Ruthless Aggression Era. So now that we understand what the WWE Attitude Era is, now we understood how it started, let's take a look at some of the cultural impact and factors that made the era so popular. We're going to talk about the edgy content, the larger-than-life characters, and the boundary-pushing storylines. First off, larger-than-life characters, boundary-pushing storylines, larger-than-life characters, and edgy content, we need to look at Goldust. The man that they called Goldust. Goldust's character was androgynous. It was... You didn't really know what he was. You didn't know whether he was LGBTQ. You didn't know what he was. You didn't know if he was attracted to men. You didn't know if he was attracted to women, because he came out with a woman valet and he would do very sexual provocative stuff. But this was in 1995. The WWE Attitude Era didn't even kick off yet. Going 1 year further, Austin 316 King of the Ring promo. Austin was in the main event of the King of the Ring against Jake the Snake Roberts. And Jake the Snake Roberts was a Bible thumper. He was saying everything about John 3:16 and everything inside the Bible. And Stone Cold Steve Austin said, well, you know, you got your Psalms and you got your John 3:16. Well, Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your ass. And everybody just went bonkers over that. At that time, I wasn't watching, so I don't really remember it firsthand. But I remember when I just got cable moving into the Bronx, I remember being able to go back and see that and go, oh my God, that was so cool. Looking at something else, there was a gimmick, a storyline where Brian Pillman had a gun, and it was like, I think Stone Cold Steve Austin broke into his house. Another man broke into another man's house and pulled a gun. If that's not real TV, I don't know what real television is. Another thing that I want to take a look at is Sunny and Sable. They turned up the sexuality in their characters. We need to give credit to Sunny and Sable. Granted, Sable is no longer involved in the pro wrestling business. She is now the wife of future Hall of Famer, possibly Brock Lesnar. And Sunny has the best has not happened to Sunny, okay? But we need to give these two ladies credit because they were the first divas in the WWE. They were the first woman that they were the first woman that mattered. Granted, Miss Elizabeth mattered, but I think at the time Miss Elizabeth, and it was the only one there, and then maybe Sensational Sherry, Queen Sherry came later on in the end. But during the ramp up to the Attitude Era, when they were getting on the ramp to get on the highway to the Attitude Era, it was Sable and Sunny. And golly, let me tell you, man, I've had a lot of thoughts about that. Moving on, key people that I want to take a look at that thrived during the Attitude Era. We're looking at people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, like I just mentioned, Chris Jericho, The Rock, Kane, Mick Foley, The Undertaker, and Kurt Angle. Those guys were just some of the small few that blew up in the Attitude Era. You know, before the Attitude Era, Chris Jericho was in WCW. And him being in WCW, he didn't really get what he wanted, so he was one of the first defectors, I would say. He was one of the first cracks in the wall to the fall of WCW. Chris Jericho came over from being a mid-carder in WCW and heightened himself to main event proportions. Chris Jericho is still one of the biggest names in pro wrestling today. You're looking at people like The Rock. The Rock came before the Attitude Era started, and he blew up to right now, he's a movie star. And in case you don't know about some guy, Triple H, I don't know what the hell he ever did. Maybe he is probably one of the most powerful people in the WWE right now that's making pro wrestling so much fun. Like I've always said before, if WWE is doing good, everybody else is doing good, unless you are WCW. Let's take a look at the transition in WWE or F at the time. I'm going to be using both of them interchangeably because, you know, it's still the same thing. You know, to them it's not, but to me, it's the same damn thing. So looking at the transition for when WWE started to go from the what would they call it? The generation, the new generation to the Attitude Era, WWE, they made the transition from TV 14 to PG 13 because they wanted to compete with WCW. WCW had content that was slamming them. WCW was the #1 pro wrestling company on television in the world at the time. You could not beat WCW. Nitro was so good. They no longer featured pro wrestling that was based around where everybody had a job. Everybody's job in WCW was you were a pro wrestler, but you had something else behind you that made you tick. At that time, WWF, WWE had clowns, they had plumbers, they had all other kinds of people like that. And WWE, you know what? The people were outgrowing it. The people were growing up, the fans were growing up, and they started transitioning over to WCW. And WWE, WWF wanted those people back. When WWE changed to TV 14, and started changing their format, they appealed to a broader audience. They no longer appealed just to the kids. They found a way to appeal to the people like me. I was 12 years old when the Attitude Era started. So they were able to appeal to the 12-year-olds and the people that were in college, okay? Because I remember watching WWE at time and seeing that the women would expose themselves on television, and it was like, yeah, they would block it out, obviously, but I'm sure somewhere there was like a WWE Raw, WWF Raw, Too Hot for TV DVD, and some girl there in her that's probably 20, that's probably almost 50 now, she had her boobs out on national TV. Good for her. Maybe she's doing real good in her life. I'm not trashing her because she did that. But when WWE switched to PG-14 and allowed for them to get more corporate sponsorships, and allowed for them to expand the media and do bigger things, some of the key moments in WWE that led to the end of the Attitude Era were Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara. They were the head writers for WWE at the time. They both left for WCW in 1999, which led to Stephanie McMahon. That's right, Stephanie McMahon, daughter of Vince McMahon, wife of Triple H. She left. They left the WWE and left a spot for Stephanie McMahon to take over and head over the writing. Another thing that definitely led to the end of the Attitude Era, the closure of WCW. Because there's no need to have the edgy content anymore because you already won. You already beat the opposition. So with the closure of WCW and ECW, who also led the way with edgy content, there was nobody else to try to beat. So I guess it only makes sense. Another thing that if you ask a lot of people, the unpopular/popular opinion online to why the WWE Attitude Era ended is because Stone Cold Steve Austin's heel turn at WrestleMania 17, which took place in 2001. The Stone Cold Steve Austin led the Attitude Era in the WWE. He led the era. He was the face. And then he turned his back on every single wrestling fan out there. And when he turned his back on every single person out there, everybody said, you know what? We don't like Stone Cold no more. I personally think, from talking to people, a lot of people have told me that they stopped watching the WWE after WCW closed. And after WCW closed and everything changed, maybe it's because Stone Cold Steve Austin turned heel and nobody wanted to believe in Stone Cold anymore because he was the bad guy. Another person that helped the Attitude Era that we talked about before, The Rock. The Rock is another reason why a lot of people say that the Attitude Era ended, because he left for Hollywood to film one of the Mummy movies in April 2nd, 2001. The Invasion storyline, the WWE versus the Alliance. The Alliance was ECW and WCW. They were purchased by Stephanie McMahon and Shane McMahon, and they went ahead head-to-head with Vince McMahon, who was the owner, or is the owner, or was the owner of the WWE. And what was happening there was that they had a little storyline in the ring to where they, who would be the person that would take over the WWE, and obviously WWE won. The one final thing, if you ask me, that led to the end of the Attitude Era was WWE changing the name from WWF Raw is War to WWF Raw. That's right. In the early 2000s, audience expectations did change, right? They changed. We were so used, growing up in the time of the 90s to the 2000s, even to now, you just see how culture just changes. TV in the late 90s, early 2000s was so edgy. I remember watching shows like I wasn't watching, but I remember hearing about shows like NYPD Blue or whatever it was it used to come on ABC. It became an edgy show. Everything was edgy, right? Everything went from, we were just so cutesy in the late 80s, early 90s to everything just crossing that line. And then in the 2000s, everything kind of just cooled back off. One of the other cultural and societal shifts that I want to talk about that impacted the WWE and the Attitude Era was in late 1999, the Parents Television Council pressured companies to pull ads from WWF programming. They criticized WWF and its programming and its content for being too vulgar and violent. All right, maybe they had a point, but why didn't they turn off their TVs? The campaign led to a loss of advertisers, forcing the WWF at the time to tone down its content, especially on SmackDown, with its less aggressive. It was less aggressive. The language was less explicit and fewer controversial characters. The rise of social media also helped turn the Attitude Era. Also helped as well too, because with social media, you started to realize that some of these people might be portraying the life of a rock star. They might not really be a rock star. So that definitely played into the culture and societal changes. Looking at the business side of the Attitude Era, why it changed and why it had to end. The WWE went public October 19th, 1999. Okay, that was in the middle of the Attitude Era, but they went public. The reason why WWE had to go public is because they wanted to raise capital. They wanted to get more money. Everything is about the money. They want to get more money so that they can have an edge over WCW. WCW had Ted Turner money, and eventually WCW was purchased from Ted Turner, right, and was owned by AOL Time Warner. AOL at the time was one of the biggest internet service providers in the world. And what they started to turning to was a media and entertainment company. And because they were turning to a media and entertainment company, they purchased TNT and TBS and all that other stuff, and WCW came along with it. So in order for the WWE to compete with that money, they also had to raise capital. They had to invest in their future. And because they invested in their future, I think a lot of what we have now on TV is because of all the stuff that they did yesterday. A lot of influencers, though, a lot of advertisers, like I talked about, would shy away from advertising with the WWE because they didn't want the backlash from the PTC, because they would probably start saying, okay, well, you know what? We're going to boycott Stridex. We're going to boycott these companies. And these companies probably looked at it in the long run and said, you know what? It's probably not worth all the trouble that they have to go through. How about we just back off and not just advertise with the WWF anymore? I get it. I understand. You always got to protect your plate. When you're sitting at the dinner table, you always got to protect your plate. The change of the WWE Attitude Era also had to happen because the WWE was expanding internationally. Some of the stuff that we do here in the West is not acceptable in Eastern culture. And some of the stuff that happens internationally is not acceptable here in America. There's certain things that we don't go for. Okay, so in order to appeal to a more broader market, because now when your television show is shown in more markets, more people are paying now to see pay-per-views internationally. They will now pay to see you when you and your company tour with them internationally. So I guess, you know what, it's smart for the WWE to do the right thing. The legacy of the Attitude Era, man, the Attitude Era is still alive and well in little pieces of pro wrestling today. When you're looking at the influence of pro wrestling today, I just want to take a look at one company. I want to look at AEW, All Elite Wrestling. All Elite Wrestling, they're a newer company, in case you don't know. They're a newer pro wrestling company. They are the number 2 pro wrestling company right now as we speak in America. And one of the things that they have done is they market their television show, all their AEW television shows, as TV 14, while WWE markets theirs as TV PG. If you want to know more about that, I actually did another episode last week talking about PG and TV and all the other stuff. What to expect when the WWE goes to Netflix. You can watch that episode. We talk a little bit more about PG, so we're not going to do that here. But AEW caters to those fans who stopped watching right after WCW closed. And you know what? I'm not mad at them. There's money to be made, so you go out there and make your money. The lasting era of WWE, it's very positive, and there's also negatives within the industry as well too. One of the negatives is that women who wanted to be pro wrestlers were over-sexualized during that time. They were over-sexualized, and because they were over-sexualized, a lot of women probably didn't get to be as big of stars as they were. Like, look at somebody like Miss Jacqueline Moore. Pro wrestler, good pro wrestler, but she never really got the fanfare that she deserved because she was a really good wrestler. They wanted to see her breasts, and she had big breasts, so I wouldn't be upset, but you know what? That's not what she wanted to be known for. She wanted to be known for her athleticism, for her really good in-ring work. Some of the positives about the Attitude Era and about the legacy is the memories that we have. We have memories like TLC. We have memories of the Hardy Boys. We have memories of the Inferno match. We have memories of Kane's debut. We have images of, the corporate ministry. We have so many different images in our mind based on the legacy of the Attitude Era. I want to know what your thoughts are when it comes to the Attitude Era. Share it in the comments. Let me know why you think the Attitude Era had to end. I'm very curious to what you think. Let's take a look at some messages that we got on Threads. I posted on Threads, and you could always follow me on Threads at The Real Big Tris. It's right here. You can just follow me on Threads, The Real Big Tris. Really active there. And the question I presented was, if WWE brought back the Attitude Era, what do you think would work and what do you think would fail in the current landscape? And I got a message from Dr. Kiam Booty, and he said he thinks the Attitude Era could work today, but it just wouldn't feel the same because we already have expectations. And when he says that, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And the reason why I agree wholeheartedly is because, you know what? There was a Ghostbusters movie with all women. And the reason, I love that movie. The reason why I think that movie failed is because everybody held it to the same exact light, and they had a certain expectation of what to expect and didn't meet it. If you watch that Ghostbusters movie where the whole cast is made up of women, and you watch it just as its own, because it does take place in a second universe, you'll be able to appreciate it much more. So I think that would definitely be an issue with the WWE if they brought back the Attitude Era. We'd have an expectation and would never really live up to that expectation. Got another message from Andy Springer 16. Andy Springer 16 says, as a whole, the Attitude Era would not work today. The chaos and giving everybody a story, no matter where they are on the card, would work. Okay. What wouldn't work is the offensive language and the casual racism. Yeah, we're not a fan of racism here. Let's see. Also, people will get really annoyed by people being buried in shorter matches these days, which happened a lot back then. Yeah, there was a lot of squash matches. Looking at Peggy Bundy, she said she definitely doesn't see the women's division being an excuse to use women as sexual props, going over pretty well in 2024. I agree. I don't see women want to be sexual props anymore. The women want to be taken seriously. How can you tell Charlotte Flair that she's going to have to be now, eye candy when she's a phenomenal wrestler? If that's the case, she's going to go someplace else and she's going to go wrestle. She's not going to do it in the WWE anymore. How do you tell somebody like Bayley, you're going to be, eye candy? They don't want to do that. That's not what they signed up for. They signed up for the WWE, the WWE that we have of today. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, look at this. Okay, so thanks so much for joining me. I definitely want you to share your comments share the comments of what you think would last with the WWE. Coming up, I got some pretty cool things coming up. I got Bash at the Berlin. There's a preview coming up for that. That's coming up on the 31st of August. And then next week, I got a interview. It's going to be a live interview with Ricky Price. Ricky Price is a pro wrestler here in the Northeast. He'll be here next Tuesday on the 20th at noon, so be sure to check that out. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Tristan Law Show. I appreciate you hanging out with me during lunchtime. I'm asking for you to subscribe, smash that subscribe button if you liked it, and if you like it, subscribe as well too. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I am humbled by the fact that we are here today. I am Tristan Law. This is the Tristan Law Show, and I'll see you next week. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Flashing red lights, driving at night, windowless ride, feeling alive.